And welcome back, everyone. As everyone's coming back into the room, I hope you're able to get that coffee you're enjoying. We're going to continue on our day. We're switching it over to uranium. We've got standard uranium, and today we're going to be having John Bay and Neil McCallum. They're going to go through that presentation like we've been doing all day. And like we've been saying as well, always get those questions in there. They want to hear your questions. I want to hear your questions. And I'm sure you want to have your questions heard. We're going to be going through the presentation for about 25 minutes or so. And then after that, we're going to go through as many questions as we possibly can. So please, if you have one now, or if you have one during the presentation, we love it. And we're actually pushing it. Get those questions in there. But with this, John, I'm going to turn over to yourself and you just call me back on whenever you need me.
Great. Thanks, Brandon. And welcome to the audience today. Really happy to have you here listening to our story. I'd like to share the story of standard uranium and where we've come over the past few years and why we are a great opportunity for investment right now. So get you through the first legal slide. Take a look at that on your own time. It's typical legal stuff. So here's a look at standard uranium. Our vision is, we believe strongly in a clean energy future, and uranium is the fuel that actually powers nuclear generators. So we believe that we are out there finding the uranium which will power a clean energy future. If you look at that map, you can see the blue is Saskatchewan, and the northern part of Saskatchewan, that sort of yellowish area, is the Athabasca Basin. It is the best place in the entire world to find uranium, the highest grade uranium. If you look at those blue dots all around the project side there, you can see where our projects are. We have our Davidson River project in the southwest corner. That's our flagship project. Up in the north, we have our Gunner projects near Uranium City. And then on the eastern side, we have 3 projects, which are Eastern Basin projects. And Neil McCallum, our VP of Exploration, is going to walk us through all those projects later in the slide. A quick snapshot of our company. Once again, that's a picture of the Athabasca Basin. We are a Canadian junior uranium exploration company. We started this company 3 years ago, and our goal was to go into the Athabasca Basin and make a discovery. En route for 2020, our main objectives were, number 1, complete a public listing. We did that on May the 4th. Number 2, we needed to raise capital to do our exploration work. We did a $4.5 million oversubscribed raise led by Red Cloud in June. And we've come back and raised another $3.4 million. Actually, it's going to close tomorrow. And we went ahead and we drilled our flagship Davidson River project this summer. And we've got results pending on that. Hopefully, that'll be coming out towards the end of October. On top of that, we have a very strong team. As you walk through our management and board of directors, you'll see we have assembled what we believe is a very exceptional junior uranium exploration program, and I think you'll probably agree with me on that. Our short-term catalysts, we are now fully funded. By the end of tomorrow, we're going to have $5 million in the bank. We're going to be fully permitted, and we're going to be ready to attack our Davidson River project again with the phase 2 drill program. More details on that program will be coming out in November. So we believe in this Lasagne Curve. This is basically a cycle of where you could be investing in the mining life of a company. We are at what we call the pre-discovery to speculation phase, right at the very start. So we are pre-discovery. We've yet to make the discovery. So our share price reflects that at this point. We're still looking for our first discovery. So this is when some exceptional returns can be made for investors if you identify the right company at the right point of time. We believe we have got an incredible project, and we are right on top of that. So let me walk you to our board, who our teammates are here. So myself and Neil McCallum on this presentation, we are both directors. I'm the CEO. I come with about 15 years of capital markets experience working in multiple sectors. Neil McCallum is a specialist in uranium exploration. He's been on the Athabasca Basin for 15 plus years as well, working with multiple companies. Next to him, we have Garrett Ainsworth. Garrett is quite well known in the Athabasca Basin. He has been around for, again, 15 years. He was one who was quite well known for actually making a discovery of the radioactive boulders, which led to the RRR project, which is run by Fission Uranium now. Garrett then left Fission and went and worked for NexGen Uranium, where he was a big part of their aero discovery and worked to help develop that for several years. When Garrett left NexGen, he came right and joined our company the next day. And I'll explain why that is a bit later on in the presentation. Blair Jordan, also an independent director. He comes from the capital markets background and a lawyer. He works with multiple junior companies on the TSX Venture CSE. And Ken Judge, a recent addition to our board at our last AGM. Ken is an M&A securities lawyer. He lives in Europe. He's worked for 30 plus junior exploration, mining, oil and gas tech companies. So he's a wealth of knowledge and great to have on our board. On top of that, we have Martin Bajic, who was our CFO, Vancouver-based CFO, worked with multiple companies as a part-time CFO, really does a fantastic job. Galen McNamara also came to us from NexGen. Galen and Garrett worked quite closely together at the Aero project, so we have him on our technical advisory team. Next to him, we have Sean Hilliker, our project geologist. Sean also comes from NexGen. Sean spent his most recent 5 years working with NexGen and did his master's degree on the Aero project. So nobody knows that project probably better than Sean. So it's a fantastic addition to have him join our team. He actually led our exploration program with Neil McCallum at our Davidson River camp this summer. And announcing today, we have Laurie Thomas, who has joined us as our VP of Exploration. VP of Investor Relations. Sorry, Laurie, you're probably listening to this right now. Welcome on board. Laurie comes from, she's a Saskatoon native. She's worked with Camco and most recently UEX with 15 plus years of accounting and investor relations experience. So wonderful to have her on our team. Watch for the news release tomorrow announcing her appointment. Onto the southwest corner of the Athabasca Basin. So here's a quick snapshot in the corner of the Athabasca Basin where we have our flagship project, our Davidson River project. You can see us in blue there. It's interesting to note all the major companies and minor companies that are all around us. And if you look at those red stars on the page, you can see the Spitfire zone, the Aero deposit, and the Triple R deposit. Those are all part of the Patterson Lake conductor. And we have a theory that we believe that same conductor runs right through our Davidson River project. And we'll walk you through that as we get to there. You can see there's been 1,000 drill holes in this region, and up until this last summer, there were 0 drill holes on our project. And we can explain to you why that is in a minute. So here's our Davidson River project. Some more details on that. So we actually, this project was staked in just around 2012. Prior to that, there was sort of the general consensus was there wasn't any uranium outside of the Athabasca Basin, and definitely not in the southwest corner. It was actually off bounds for, you couldn't even stake there because they had oil and gas boundaries on that until certain geologist, Garrett Ainsworth, made the radioactive boulder discovery in this region. That led to a staking rush, and all the areas around this were staked up pretty quickly. Ours was staked by an individual by the name of Jody DeRouge. Jody at the time was a director for Fission. And so when Jody departed Fission, he wanted to keep the project. Fission wanted it, they thought it was theirs, but went to court. Jody was the rightful owner and he reclaimed 100% of it. So all that time while it was in court, tied up for 3+ years, there was exploration going on in this region. Triple R project really expanded. NexGen made their Aero discovery. The Spitfire project was discovered. So all these things were happening and the Davidson River could not be explored as it was tied up in courts. Fast forward to a few years and we acquired this from Jody DeRouge. We started working on this project at the end of 2017. And over the past 2 years, we've been doing the geophysics to lead to our first drill program. And I'm gonna let Neil take you through our drill program when we get there. So we're quite often asked, if your project is so amazing, why has there never been any drill holes and why was nobody else exploring? That's the quick summary of why that was. So the Clearwater domain mirror theory, as you see on this slide, all those gray squiggly lines, those are conductive zones where we hope there will be potentially uranium. And you can see the one conductor, which is the Patterson Lake conductor, it actually has 3 major projects there. So the Aero, the Triple R, and the Spitfire zone, those have all been on the same conductor. So it's really important that we know that conductor is it's got potential for uranium on the western side. The Clearwater domain mirror theory basically says the Clearwater domain was the host, the source of the uranium, the heats, the fluids, and the uranium that actually precipitated out on the eastern side of the Clearwater domain. Our geologists had the theory that uranium and those fluids could also have been deposited on the western side of the Clearwater domain. But our project had never had any work done on it. So we had to first of all prove there were conductors that ran through our project. We did that with VTEM and ZTEM, both taken care of in 2018 and 2019. And that led to our first drill program. The drill program really focused on proving the Clearwater domain theory this summer. We wanted to actually drill into the ground and prove that those same rock types that are on the eastern side were on the western side, making our project potential for a uranium discovery, a high-grade basement-hosted uranium discovery. So if you look at this close-up of the Davidson River project, our main claims, those 4 purple thick lines, those are the major conductors we found in our project. There were actually 26 conductors proven out by the geophysics, but those are the 4 major ones. The one on the second from the right, the long one, that is our warrior trend. And if you can see that little area and sort of the yellowish up there, That is where we planned the drill program, and that's what we drilled this summer. What we're looking for, besides conductors, we're looking for some other signatures that were similar to what they had at Arrow and what they had at Triple R. We were looking for cross-cutting structures that went across these conductors. We were looking for, breaks. We're looking for conductive bright spots. We're looking for change in dip direction. And all of those things were found in that one region of the Warrior Trend. So that's why we focused our first drill program there. This is sort of a close-up of that. And you can see all those little circles and lines. They all focus on that high priority zone, which is it's about 2.53 kilometers long. That was the scope of our drill program this summer, majority of the holes. And then we also did some holes down in the bottom right and the top left. So we really put some drill holes all over this, 13 drill holes specifically, but I don't want to steal Neil's thunder. So I'll move on to the next slide. Actually, I'm gonna let Neil take over from here. We're on slide 13, Neil. If you can see the screen, and why don't you sort of walk us through the Warrior exploration trend and the program we have planned and what we found out. Pass it over to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is the first drill program on this project. So we learned a lot on this project, and our goal was to find where along that Warrior Trend is best to look for uranium. So to do that, we need to find out which side of the corridor, because it is a wide corridor of what we're interpreting as stacked conductors or stacked graphite-rich zones. So we need to find out which side of the conductor we need to be on. And to do that, we're doing fences of drill holes to test all the way through and to look with that sort of a drilling pattern of fences across the conductive corridor. We need to test the strike length of the corridor as well. So our first pass drill program is testing the highest priority zone, testing the width of it, and as well we have to test the length of it. So we achieved that with this first pass drill program, and we are looking for essentially vectors that will tell us where to follow up on. And we found some interesting things that show us that we're on the right path with the right kind of basement rocks. A big part of the search for uranium is looking for those graphite-rich shear zones that may or may not have sulphides as well. These are the representation of those airborne electromagnetic conductors. So from that standpoint, it was a success. And then we're going to learn a lot from the geochemistry that we're waiting on, and then interpreting that in 3D to sharpen our pencils for phase 2, which is set to occur this winter. So maybe we'll move ahead on the slide. You can see, and you can find this presentation on our website as well. That is a snapshot of one of the better looking structurally altered trends, where we've got, multiple stages of brecciation, of shearing in that one photo there, which tells us that we're in the right area. We need these rocks to be structurally altered as a precursor to the uranium mineralizing system. So a few things that we're looking for, we found. We were looking for alteration that shows that a uranium mineralizing system is there. And as well, you need the structurally altered rocks. So that's what we found on the phase 1. And then we're really looking forward to getting back for phase 2, focusing on the Warrior Zone, but testing a few of those other trends on the project as well to make sure that we're testing the entire project, not just the Warrior Zone.
Excellent. I'll move it along. Take us to up north to the Gunner project, Neil.
Yeah, so this project is up at the northern end of the basin, and an area that hasn't had a lot of attention drawn to it in a lot of years. It was an old mining camp, active, primarily in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and we are taking a look at the area again for different deposit style. Back in those days, they were looking for vein type uranium. It's a little bit lower grade, a little bit smaller than a typical Athabasca Basin deposit, which are not only high grade, but are very large. And that's what we're going after here. We're not going after the same type of deposit they were looking at in the 50s and 60s. Those are a little bit further north. We're right at the edge of the Athabasca Basin. So having that Athabasca Basin cover is really important for us because that will lead us towards a Athabasca Basin style deposit. And we're looking for a deposit in the basement, and we're right at the edge of the water. So that is a deposit style that we're looking for, an analogy of an underground mining scenario similar to Eagle Point, which has been mined since 1994 and the eastern end of the basin.
Neil, we just recently had some geologists up at site. Can you walk us through what they were finding there?
Absolutely. So on the next slide there, we were finding high-grade uranium right at surface. So this is important because it's not in basement rocks. It's in little bits of sandstone, Athabasca sandstone, that right at the edge of the northern basin. So because of that, we can make that link that it is in fact Athabasca Basin basement hosted uranium. And my thinking is that the stuff we're seeing in the sandstone is a bit of a perched mineralization above the basement. So we're really looking forward to seeing what those assays come back. They'll be next couple of weeks to get the analytical, and we'll release that as soon as we have it. So
exciting. And what were the numbers they were seeing on the scintillometer on that trip?
Yeah, so it's essentially off scale, which is greater than about 65,000 counts per second. So we're hoping that we're able to repeat some of the historical work that was, over a few percent U3O8. But again, we'll have to wait and see on the geochemistry.
Excellent. And just sort of forward looking here, what do you think would be some next steps we could look forward to with this program?
Absolutely. So one thing that has not been, we do have a good database of exploration from SMDC, which is a predecessor company to Camco, and they have done a lot of the fundamental work, which is ground EM surveys. They did some drilling, which intercepted some really interesting results in the basement, but they hadn't been followed up on. They were drilling in right around 1980, 1981, and then at that point, they pretty much stopped almost all exploration in 1981, and that area really hasn't been looked at in a serious amount of detail. Alaska was there between 2006 and 2008, and they did some ground EM surveys as well that we can build upon, but they drilled a few holes. But again, what we're doing is we're taking a bit of a deeper dive. We're compiling all of the historical information, putting it into a 3D model, something which hasn't been done before, and we'll be able to come up with some really interesting insights based on that compilation. So the next steps that I want to do are a ground gravity survey, and that will look for alteration zones in the basement rock that will be indicative of a uranium deposit. And then following that, we can drill that project in around March by drilling on lake ice. And with that, we can access the project, in the winter in March with the frozen ground conditions and make it a really economic exploration program.
Great. Well, let's shift gears and head east to our eastern basin projects. Can you walk us through those?
Absolutely. So 3 projects on the eastern basin. And again, this is an area that hasn't seen a lot of exploration in recent years, despite some really fundamentally interesting characteristics for uranium deposit. There's conductors on these projects that haven't been tested, maybe 1 or 2 holes. And those holes had some interesting results, some uranium geochemistry that tells us that we need to head back and follow that up. It just hasn't been done yet. So the easternmost project at the Ascent is right at the edge of the basin. So really shallow exploration, shallow drilling. And then the Atlantic project is right along the highway, and it'll be fairly straightforward to explore that one as well. And the reason why I like the area is it's seeing a lot more attention based on ISO Energy's recent results. They've been proving up a uranium zone at their Hurricane uranium zone, 33.9% U3O8 over 8.5 meters, which is pretty darn good, and that's what we want to see in the Athabasca Basin. So I think that that project hadn't been looked at as well in probably 20 or 30 years until they went back and kind of reinterpreted things, did some more exploration, and that's kind of what I want to see done on our projects as well. Sort of, reinventing these old projects and looking at them from a modern perspective.
Great, thanks, Neil. I'm going to take us to slide 18, which is our share structure page. A couple things to keep in mind here to the audience. We have an OTC listing, which is due to be completed in about 2 to 3 weeks. So we're almost there on that. We are listed in Germany as well. And on the TSX Venture, our symbol is STND. Currently, as of today, we have 68.1 million shares out. But when we officially close the financing tomorrow, watch for that news release, there'll be an additional 15 million shares added to our capital structure. Our market cap's 12.3 roughly. It'll jump up to about roughly around 15 million after that's completed. As I mentioned, we're raising 3.4 million on this round. We've got a couple million in the bank already. So by the end of this year, we anticipate entering 2021 with roughly 5 million cash in the bank. 3 million of that is flow-through funds, so that will all go directly to drilling. Probably more of that will go to drilling. We're going to start off with our Davidson River program. We're going to follow up with phase 2 and potentially drilling up in the north at our Gunner project. It's important to know that we've got some very interesting shareholders, and I want to point out to listeners that for a company to sub a 20 million market cap to be primarily held by institutions or high net worth individuals is very unique. It's not a lot of retail, but that is growing. That's one of our focuses in this capital raise, was to add more retail into it. And one of the reasons we brought in that Canaccord to actually assist on this capital raise. I want to draw your attention to Station Cove, L2 Capital, and Tribeca Investment Partners. Those are arguably 3 of the top 4 uranium-specific funds on the globe. So we have Station Cove out of New York, which is Mike Alkin's company. If you Google uranium and top presenters, Mike Alkin is probably the number 1. Followed by L2 Capital, which is Marcelo Lopez from Brazil and Australia, and Guy Keller from Tribeca. And my dog has joined me to say hello. He's making a lot of noise. Shh, go, get out of here. So I'm going to go on to the next slide here, which is slide 19. And it's a summary slide. So you can see here, we wanted to be an exploration team with proven success in this region. And we've got a fantastic project here. Davidson River being our flagship, and it's in a region where high-grade discoveries have been made, and we believe we're on the cusp of one ourselves. We completed our listing on May 4th, and then we raised capital with Red Cloud on June 26th, a 4.5 raise, and then again in October, closing tomorrow, another 3.4 million. We're going to be going ahead with our phase 2 drilling on our Davidson River project, which will start in Q1 of 2021. So for a junior of 15 million market cap with 5 million cash in the bank, fully permitted, fully funded to continue our drilling, it's a fantastic time to join us and become a shareholder of Standard Uranium. So thank you very much. I think it's time to bring Brandon back in and get to some questions. Brandon, are you there?
For that presentation, by the way, going through that, I know for myself personally, uranium's new to me. I'm been intrigued by it. Over the last while, I interviewed Rick Rule about 6 to 8 months ago, and he started talking about this whole case for uranium. Started looking into it more. That's when we started running into companies like yourselves, and a lot of investors were flooding into our network talking about uranium. So it's a really fascinating thing that I don't think some investors have ever thought of before. But when you start looking into it, when you start looking at this for it, there's a case for this for the next few months, and of course future as well. So excited to hear and appreciate going through all of that. Going into the Q&A function here, why don't we go into the first couple of questions? Then between the two of you gentlemen, you can let me know who would like to answer the question. The first one is from Richard. It says, your company has an OTC ticker. albeit pink with no brokers. Any plans to get QB or even QX and thus attract U.S. brokers and investors?
I'll take that. And yeah, thank you for the question, Richard. That is actually our plan. Yes, we are in the process of doing that right now, QX, and we are waiting right now for our DTC eligibility, which is really the hurdle to get us trading in the U.S. So the OTC symbol is secured, and it's the DTC eligibility that we anticipate completing in the next, I've been told 2 weeks, but I'd say it's not in our hands, so let's make it 3 weeks.
You never know with the regulators.
You don't.
This next question, from a higher level standpoint, why do you think now is the right time for people to be invested in uranium, and specifically a grassroots uranium exploration company? Uranium spiked earlier in the year. It has been consolidating a bit since. Can you also opine on your uranium macro environment expectations over, say, the next year?
Perfect. Thank you for that question. And it covers a lot of things there. So let's talk about macro wise first. So yes, if you're following any of the uranium newsletters or experts who are writing about uranium daily, and if you're on Twitter, there's a guy called John Quakes. You follow him, and you get basically everything. Most people are saying, look, the supply and demand balance globally right now is just completely out of whack. Everyone is waiting for the utilities to come back to market and find longer-term contracts. Spot price is just at between $29 and $30 right now, and none of the people are going. None of the uranium companies are going to be signing any long-term contracts for anything less than $50. So there's a huge gap there. So when those utilities come to market and they start signing those contracts, we will see uranium take off. And unlike a space like gold or silver or copper, the space of uranium is tiny. I mean, the global overall size of the uranium industry is probably less than 10 billion. So there's only less than 100 uranium companies. So when you're looking at your portfolio, if you do like uranium, first of all, it's not for everyone. There's some investors that love it, some of them that just don't care for it for various reasons. But if you do like uranium, you probably want to take a look at 3 different types of uranium companies. You've got the massive guns, the ones like the Oranos and the Camcos, the Kazakhstan, the Kazatomprom, and then you've got your mid-tier ones, which are guys that are near production or close to production, or then you've got the exploration ones. There's reasons to hold each of them. There's various reasons depending on what your investment strategy is. The exploration ones, that is the high risk but highest reward. If you look at 2 companies which are right next door to us, NexGen and Fission, they both made discoveries in a bear market, and their share price, went up 10 to 20 times. That is the kind of returns you can get with the uranium exploration discovery, even in a bear market. We anticipate, 2021 is going to be a strong year for uranium. It has to be. We've been saying that. I know you hear that for the last 3 or 4 years, but it's like I hear the common phrase, it's a coil that just gets tighter and tighter and tighter, and when it goes, it's really going to take off. Back in 2006, when uranium took off last time, it went from $10 a pound to $137 a pound in a very short period. And those that were invested in juniors or pretty much any uranium company did extremely well. That's where Rick Rule made his real fortune, was uranium back in that first run. So that's a good reason why to look at uranium, why a junior exploration company like ours could be a great opportunity for you.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the exact story he was telling me. That's what made me think, like, oh my goodness, I need to start looking into this, and I have since. This next question is saying, assuming all goes to plan, are you eventually hoping to build a mine or sell it to a major?
Good question. So we're looking at a model very similar to what NexGen is doing, and that is you make your original discovery, which is a huge accomplishment, and then you spend the time and the money to develop that out and really grow it and see how big it really is. And that could take a few years, but over that time period, we anticipate both the NexGen's Aero project and Triple R could eventually have mines built. They're both telling the investment community they're going to build mines there in the next 5 years, which makes a lot of sense. If you look at potential opportunities around the globe, those are 2 of the best projects, and they're in a safe area. Saskatchewan's fantastic for getting projects moved forward, and that time frame is going to be huge demand for uranium, and those 2 are going to come online. We are going to be a few years behind that, but as we build our project out, we could go on along the same path. But I anticipate there'll be many companies looking at taking us out, and we'll do what's ever in the best interest of our shareholders at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said there. This next question is a very interesting one, actually. Are local First Nations groups supportive of the project? Something that's very important.
Well, I'll take that one as well. Yeah, we work quite closely with the local First Nations groups in our region. Chief Teddy Clark is the First Nations chief of the Dene First Nations right around Lasagne, and he actually is a businessman as well, and he runs the Big Bear camp where we operate up in the summer months. We have a very strong relationship with him. We've been working with him now for 2.5 years, and he's worked with one of our directors, Garrett Ainsworth, for many years with NexGen as well. So we are very supportive. We work extremely well with the First Nations groups up there, and we've got all the support to continue to drive our program forward. This summer with our Davidson River program, we operated out of Big Bear, and we employed several the staff from the Lasagne area, and they're very happy to have us there and happy to have us working and spending money in their region.
It's good to hear. You hear more and more the importance of that, because that can absolutely kibosh a deal if they're not on your side. So it's very nice to hear that. The next question here is, why do you think you have been successful raising money where many other uranium companies seem to be struggling?
Well, it's a good point. I mean, we know all the companies in our region quite well. We know the management teams. We know their projects. Number one, I would say we have assembled an exceptional cast of team members here, from board members to exploration team. These guys have been involved with those discoveries of RRR and with Arrow and advancing it. They know what they're looking for, and they identified the Davidson River project as probably the next up-and-coming project in the area. And that's specifically why Garrett Ainsworth came to us from NexGen. He saw that as the highest opportunity in the whole basin for the next discovery. So having Garrett come over, and then bringing Galen with them, and then getting Neil on board, and recently bringing on Sean Hilliker and now Laurie Thomas, we're building a remarkable team with experience in this region. On top of that, I specifically spent 2 years targeting the investment uranium fund managers, getting to know them quite well, starting at the end of 2017, and getting them on board to understand our story and look at our project. Once we had them on side, it was much easier to talk to the other institutions and explain to them, if these specific uranium funds are investing in us at this early stage, it's worth taking a look at. And bringing on Red Cloud as a partner, and the banker Mark Stiles has been exceptional. We've really enjoyed working with them and their network. And also Jeff Zirkerman with Adventus Capital. They've got a great reach of investors in Canada and the U.S., and we've tapped into all those. And I'm happy to say, we did raise funds quite quickly, both in June and once again in October. The capital raise we just completed, $3.4 million. We announced it, and it was pretty much, the book was filled within 24 hours. So that tells us we've got a lot of great support out there, and we're happy to go into 2021 fully funded and fully permitted, ready to explore.
Yeah, it's fantastic doing that so quickly. It's always a good sign. Our next question here is, the amount of institutional support for a newer grassroots company is definitely unusual, but in a good way. What would you attribute your success for when it comes to attracting these types of investors? I believe you just spoke on that a little bit more, but let's go a little bit more into that. How have you really brought them into your company?
Well, I'm going to say a lot of it is, hard work and persistency, and targeting the specific funds we wanted to have into our company, and then going and meeting with them face to face. Prior to the COVID life, I was able to travel to the specific uranium conferences, the World Nuclear Show in London each year, and the PDAC, and then actually going down and visiting some of these fund managers where they operate out of, and building the relationship, and really getting them comfortable with who I was, who our team was, what our plans were, and then really taking them through the science behind why we think our project is so important. They're pretty smart guys. They understood it. They really believed in Neil and Garrett and our exploration side, and they buy our story. They understand what exactly we're looking for and what the potentials are of making that discovery.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, there's a comment somewhere in our chat, not in the questions, saying "I go where Garrett goes." So funny you just said that. I was just checking, like, is this a question that should be over in the question period? So that's funny that came up. This next question says, John.
Let me follow up on that for a second, Brandon.
I'm sorry?
So let me follow up on that comment, because that's a really good one. It's important. There are a lot of companies out there, not just uranium, but other sectors as well, where there are exploration teams that have never found anything. They've come close, or they've been in the right region. But to have guys like Garrett and Neil, who've actually made huge discoveries and been a part of those growing, and knowing the specific type of rocks that we're dealing with, is monumental. And bringing Sean Hilliker on board now this past summer, who was able to sit in our exploration core shack and be able to explain to the other geologists we had there exactly what we were looking for, showing everything, talking in a geological level that's way above my pay grade. and been able to break down every meter of the core that came in and tell you why that's so important, how that compared to the rocks he was seeing, like the Arrow deposit, and why it's so exciting that we're seeing that where we're seeing it. So that kind of stuff is remarkable. So following guys who've made discoveries, and specifically in the sector you're in the region you're in, is awesome. I think that's been a big part of us bringing many investors on board.
Yeah, absolutely. And clearly the investor who's on the other side of that on the chat room as well.
Yeah, thank you for joining us.
The other question here is saying, John, can you comment on whether you have had any interest from larger companies like Camco or NexGen with respects to partnering with you at Davidson's River?
It's a good question. I can't get into specifics on that, but I can tell you when we started, initially trying to raise money for our first drill program back in 2018 and 2019, a lot of the largers we spoke with, we didn't speak to Cameco, we're a bit too early for them, but we did speak with Uranium. We've spoken with them several times, and their message to us was, we like your people, we like what you're looking at, we like your project, go put some drill holes in and make a discovery, and then we'll be coming with an offer to be a part of what you're doing. So at that point, that's another decision we'll take to our shareholders. Do we want to have another big company come in, or do we want to keep that value specifically for our shareholders and move forward? So it's interesting when you don't have a discovery, no one wants to give you anything. But as soon as you make that next step, then you become the hottest person at the dance. Right? Everyone wants to be your dance partner at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. They always want to try getting once something's been proven, they all start piling in. So it's always a good sign to see.
The risk comes off, right? The risk comes off, and it's much easier for them to sell it to their constituents.
Absolutely. Well, we've got another question here. It says, Neil mentioned perched mineralization at your Gunner project. Can you elaborate a bit on what that means? Good question.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Something that I should have gone into a little bit more detail. So what you see at other uranium deposits in the Athabasca Basin, Cigar Lake is a perfect example, but you see this at Shea Creek or a few others, is that above that uranium deposit at the unconformity between the Athabasca Basin sandstones and the basement rocks, when you're looking in the sandstone, you find these lower grade pods of uranium mineralization above the major deposit. So that's an important observation, because at the Stewart Island target on the Gunner project, there is a small uranium deposit that's hosted entirely in the Athabasca sandstone. There's nothing at or near the basement rocks. So that's been a bit of a weird thing that people really haven't been able to expand upon that. But I'm thinking that people are just thinking about it the wrong way. What I am interpreting, and what other people have thought of as well, is that this might be a piece of a larger deposit that's nearby. We just explorers just haven't looked hard enough to actually target the basement rocks where there's conductors. So they've drilled off that uranium deposit that was, first of all, a surface showing, found it in the sandstone, drilled off a very small deposit, but they didn't actually test the conductors, the main sort of targeting tool that people use in the Athabasca Basin. So this is a really important thing, because it's a totally untested target next to potentially, this perched mineralization that we've found already. But, we're looking for the big ticket item, which is the unconformity or basement hosted uranium deposit.
Gotcha.
Neil, can I comment or ask you a question about this?
Yeah.
Maybe you can explain to the audience, what we're planning to do with our Leapfrog software and compiling of the data for the past, 30, 40 years.
Absolutely. So the Leapfrog software is something that, a lot of people are using these days, but it didn't exist, 15, 20 years ago, where people could compile all this historical drilling data and turn it in 3D. They could do simple cross sections, by hand or on a computer, but it was a little bit of a static thing. You couldn't really add or interpret information. So that's what we're going to be doing, is compiling all that historic data. And then from that, we can do our drill targeting in a really precise way, rather than sort of shooting darts at a board. We're going to be, precision drilling based on that historical data.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, appreciate that. It really helps a lot of investors who are still learning the space, getting these definitions, understanding what it is that you're talking about. So I appreciate it a lot.
Hey, Brent, I just want to make another comment to you and to your audience. If you haven't had an opportunity to go on to social media and get a chance to take a look at what we're actually doing at our drill program this summer, there's a lot of insightful videos we've done with our project geologist Sean Hilliker, walking through all the things that happen at a drill program with short little 1-minute clips. So I encourage your audience to take a look at that and have a look at those videos if you want to see what actually it looks like at a drill program.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would encourage that as well. Is it through your social media handles like Facebook and Instagram, or is it on your through your website?
Yeah, it's probably best to look at on Twitter, where most of them can be found. Yep. You can find us on Twitter, STND as well, so you can find us there. And we will have our website is getting reworked right now, and they will all be there in the immediate future.
Beautiful. Hey, the more information, the better. I'm an absolute firm believer in that for investors to understand the story, whether you're just starting in a certain space or a certain sector, or whether you've been here for 15, 20, 30 years. The more information, the better choices you can make. So it always comes off well when companies are putting that out there for investors, because investors are hungry for it. So I appreciate that. We do have one last question here, and this one is saying, it's from Jonathan here, saying, John, do you think another potential Cigar Lake shutdown due to COVID is possible that could further exacerbate the supply-demand imbalance in the uranium markets?
So, good question, John. Thanks for that. John is, as I know, and Brandon lives in Saskatchewan, and we spent our summer exploring in Saskatchewan. Our program at Davidson River, was quite challenging because COVID had broken out, and we were actually delayed a month waiting for the COVID number of cases to come down. We were fortunate. We had a very strict COVID protocol, and we managed to do our entire program successfully without a single outbreak. And that is thanks to Neil McCallum and the camp at Big Bear Camp and our drillers and helicopters. Everyone was, it was tough conditions, but we made it work. Now, what we're seeing in Saskatchewan in the past week, 2 weeks, the numbers are skyrocketing. Again, I think the number was 66 or something like that yesterday, which was getting to a very uncomfortable situation. I believe they're over 30 in the far northeast section where, Cigar Lake is. So, and I've heard rumors that there may be some cases, at the mill and maybe even near the mine. So, do I anticipate there could be another Cigar Lake shutdown? It's quite possible. I mean, last time Cigar Lake was shut down, if you believe what the management was saying, it would be fully preventive. They didn't want any cases going up near other people and affecting the indigenous communities. The numbers are significantly higher now than they were when they had the first shutdown. So if you extrapolate that, if the numbers continue to get worse and worse, I would watch closely for Camco making a decision on that.
Yeah, it's always it continues to change. It continues to adapt, and it's one of those things you have to continually take your eyes on, no matter what aspect of your life, investing or in your personal life. It's definitely affecting us all one way or another. So, yeah, anything is plausible, unfortunately, but we adapt to it. So I appreciate that information there. Now, there was another question that was still in here, and then I've got one for myself personally. But there's another question that says, you seem to have had no issues raising capital so far, but for a smaller company, you have a lot of potential properties to explore. How are you allocating funds, and are you worried at all about stretching yourself too thin?
Okay, great. So very, very good question. And raising capital, look, sometimes it looks like it's easy. It's never an easy process, and some companies really struggle to get it done. And you never also want to be in a situation where you're trying to raise money when you're out of money. So it's very important that when you've got money in the bank, that you're able to use that as leverage to raise more capital to make sure the till is always full. We have a very strong technical team with Neil and Garrett and Galen and Sean, and really identifying all the projects we have and really earmarking where they want that exploration funds to go. Priority one is Davidson River. We believe that is the most exciting project in Saskatchewan right now. And our phase 2 drill program in Q1, we're going to earmark at least $2 million for that to do another 5,000 meters, most likely, maybe a bit more. On top of that, our project up in the north, the Gunner, that is probably priority 2 right now. We're going to go up there. I'm actually going there in about 2 days to meet with the mayor and have a look around and do a bit more work with Sean Hilliker and be able to follow up on that just to make sure we've got everything capable to move forward if we want to move quickly on that. The projects on the Eastern Basin, that's priority 3 right now. and it's we are giving them all fully permitted as well, so that should we want to drill it, we'll be able to do that as well. And on top of that, I haven't talked about M&A opportunities. We have several of our backers, financial funds, that have given us verbal support that if we see projects that we think are going to make our company a stronger company, they've got financial support to go after those as well. So we brought on a specific director, Ken Judge, who was a M&A securities lawyer and specialist in M&A opportunities. And we have a few CAs in place right now with some other companies, and we are looking to expand on the projects that we believe are going to make us a stronger company.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that. And from your answer on this, another question came in from Oz asking, did management and the team participate in the latest financing?
Yes, every financing.
Perfect. Yeah, I just saw it pop up just as you were answering there, so I'm sure he'd be happy to see that.
Currently, management own about 5% of the company right now.
Gotcha. Well, I really appreciate it. Well, I get to skip his next question there because if not, why not? But we just heard yes, that's perfect. But my question to yourself, for an investor that is just hearing about this story, maybe they're just hearing about uranium, and they're very curious about this. If they were looking into your company as one of the horses to get that exposure to uranium, what could they, what should they be excited about in the coming near term, the next few months? What can they be? What's in store for your company that they should be both excited about, but also looking into?
So for us, I mean, the next really exciting exploration stuff, we're going to be getting results back from the assay lab for both our Davidson River project and from the Gunner project. So our team will put those together. We'll come out with a follow-up news release, which will really break down the results of that. Next will be a follow-up, phase 2 drill program, identifying the targets we're going after. And then that'll take us right up until, 2021. So going into 2021, that's when the exploration really starts to happen again. And that's when you'll see a really strong push by us on the marketing side to really tell our stories and go from there.
Absolutely. Well, Neil and John, I appreciate very much you taking the time for this. For all of our investors in here too, asking questions, love seeing those come through as well. We are going to have a couple minutes here before our next webinar. So once again, I know it's a long day, so to grab that coffee, maybe grab a quick bite because we got a great company coming up next year. John and Neil, one last thing, if they were to reach out to you in any way, maybe it's your website, maybe it's through an email, where would you want investors reaching out to? Just maybe speak to you a little bit more.
Yeah, excellent. So I'm very active on Twitter. You can get me there, or you can go to our website and there's a contact us page. And also, my email is right there. It's flashing on the screen right now. You can see it's at jbay@standarduranium.ca, and that's my mobile number on top. So I can be reached on my mobile most of the time, depending on what part of the world you're in. Don't call me in the middle of my night, please. But happy to talk to investors always.
Absolutely, guys. Well, I appreciate it and enjoy the rest of your day as well. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you, Brandon.
Thank you.